Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. This is Divine, the D of DNA. Nice to meet you. It's your first time. Take a seat. So I know you might be asking the question today, what's the T, Divine? Well, it's cranberry and passion fruit. But besides this tea, I'm serving singleness today. We're going to talk about singleness. We're going to talk briefly about relationships, about situationships. So grab your cup of tea, of coffee. It was raining today. I got a little sick. Don't be distracted. Grab your cup of tea, grab your pen, your paper, sit down. We're going to be talking. Go ahead, I'm waiting. This is really hot. But grab your tea. We're going to be talking right now. I would like to start by saying I'm not the expert on relationships. I don't know everything. I've never been through everything. So this is just my experiences, what I've learned through time, and I'm sharing that with you guys. So I'll just like to put that out there. I'm a human being, like my friend used to love saying, I'm not a human done. I'm still being conjugated. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still learning. But as I'm learning, I'd like to share that with you guys. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to start with some questions that I got. Am I single? So, after much consideration, researchers have shown that yes, I am single. How long have I been single? I would say I've been single on and off for maybe 2, 3, 4 years. And I say that because we all know sometimes you're in between relationships, like you're in between jobs. And yeah, so it's been like that for a while. And I decided to be single, and I say decided because it was a decision. It wasn't a default setting. It wasn't something that happened upon me. I was like, oh, singleness upon me. I decided to be single, and I made that decision after 2 things happened in my life. And I'm not gonna go into too many details on them. I'm just gonna do a rush over them. So before I get into what happened and what led to my decision, I would like to define 2 terms: relationships and situationships. If you've been long enough, sorry to all people, shout out. But if you've been alive long enough, you've seen both. You've seen relationships and you've seen situationships. And I'm going to briefly describe a relationship. I'm not going to get into the details. Nox is there for that. She'll be here next week, shout out. And you're going to hear that from her. But a relationship is when 2 people decide, I kind of like the way you look. I kind of like the way that we look. Let's like each other and like only each other within the confines and the long term, whatever of this is happening. Don't look at other people, and that's a relationship. You decide it's a partnership. But a situationship, it's basically getting all the benefits of the relationship, the affection, the money, I don't know, the food, the physical affection, whatever, without the commitment. And both of those informed my decision because I was in a relationship with this guy that I knew since I was, 10, 11. And eventually we decided, so it was like my first love, if you could say that, except for Jesus. But it was my first love for when I was young, and we decided to get into this relationship not really knowing what we were doing. So during the course of the relationship, a lot of things happened and it ended really badly. Now, in relationships, there's, I guess, 3 outcomes, something or 4. Something, it could end well, it could end really badly, it could end in an injury, or it could end in hurt. So I would like to first start by also describing what I call a hurt and what I call an injury. I don't know if you watch soccer. I love soccer, and during soccer when people play, somebody may be kicked off or pushed over and then they can get up quickly and dust themselves up. That's a hurt, right? They can continue to play. But an injury happens when you've been hurt so badly that you have to get off the field, like the game is over for you for those 90 minutes, and then you have to go do research and maybe do tests on and see. You may be out for a month, for weeks, for years, and it could even end your career. And this relationship was an injury. I got hurt, but I was injured. Like,
it got to a point where I was sitting, I'm like, wow, I could really die from this. Like, this is serious. Like, yeah.
It was literally one of those relationships where even my friends and my family, whenever somebody mentions that person's name, we're just like, it never happened. It was so damaging to me. And so after that happened, I remember just sitting with myself, I'm like, whoa, I could really die from this. Like, this is very serious. We need to call the priest, the pope, Jesus himself. Like, it was so bad. I really was badly injured by that situation, by that relationship, and also now situationships. And I've been in a couple where there's no real commitment. You kind of vibing with this person, but the thing about that is that, our generation likes saying things like, no, we don't want labels and stuff like that. But if there's no labels, you will misuse something. Because if you don't know that's a knife, you won't know how to cut with it, or you cut everything with it. And it kind of puts us in a culture where everything is yours, but not really, and you can't really claim ownership to anything. And I've been in those, and they've been damaging, because when somebody behaves a certain way, you can't catch feelings and say, oh, but what? You never established the boundaries, and without boundaries, it makes room for disrespect. And I was just tired of being disrespected. I was tired of feeling like I could die at any point, so I sat down. And I remember very well during that relationship when it started, God said no. And guess what I did? I was like,
y'all hear some? No, I didn't get what? No, I had no
God. And so it's like when you're a child and you're playing and you're running around, and your mom tells you stop, you're gonna hurt yourself, and you're like, Mom, I got this, I know this, and then when you get hurt, I had to go and say, like, I got hurt, and so I had to go back to Dad, to God. I call God Dad sometimes. It's awkward, but I had to go back and be like, Dad, I'm hurt, actually no, I'm injured, I think I might die, please fix it. And as we do, and so he sat me down and he said, baby girl, called me Chérie. Chérie is a very affectionate term in French. This is your daily or your weekly French lesson. Catch up, write down the notes. Chérie comes from the verb to chérir. Chérir means to take care of, to feed, to clothe, to bathe. Don't go give people baths. It's weird unless it's your child. But it's basically taking care of in a way that you want to sustain something. So when somebody calls you mon chéri or ma chérie, it means something deep. So God tells me, Chérie, sit down, I want to talk to you. And I was like, fine. So I sat down and he said, I want you to sit at my table long enough. I want you to sit at my table long enough and let me feed you, let me fill you. There's voids in you that you keep trying to get out of relationship, and that's why you keep getting hurt. And your desire to be in relationship is not a wrong thing. Relationships, I made them. I created them. Look, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, we're all sitting in this meeting with you. We are in a relationship together. We are in communion, so it's not bad to want relationships, but let me fill you up first. Because you're hungry, right? And it's okay to be hungry. Hunger is not something to be ashamed of, right? But he gave me this analogy. He said, those busy days when you leave your bed like at 5 o'clock and you have to run around and you have classes and stuff like that, and you barely eat really. When you get home from those days and you sit at your house, you make a 5-course meal to eat. I'm like, nah, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm not seeing clearly, I'm holding up 15 fingers, I need food in my body before I die. And God said to me, it's like, that's what most of your relationships have been. You just grab at anything that looks good, you grab at anything that looks like it could fulfill you, when really it's not nutritional to you. And so that's why you're sitting here and you're injured and you're hurt. Because you keep grabbing at anything. He says, sit down, let me fill you up until you full, so that when food actually comes your way, you actually have the standard and the option to say, no, thank you, I'm full. You're not spicy. I love spicy food. So I can actually have the standard to be, you're not spicy enough for me. But when you're hungry, you don't have a standard. Beggars can be choosers. Kanye West said that. But anyway, so God set me down and I was offended. You know how we be with God? How dare you say I don't have a standard, you son of God. I knew he was right. I was just touched. I was, like, I'm not too sure. Okay, I'm going to sit down. And he said the other reason why I want you to sit down is because there's these 5 things that I want to establish in you before a relationship. Now, that part that you mentioned to me, I watched this sermon by Michael Todd. Shout out, I love y'all, I love your work, thank you. I remember when I watched that sermon, I was still in a relationship. My boyfriend and I were not fighting. It was great, like it was rosy, it was beautiful. After watching that sermon, I was like, I need to break up. Yep. And I broke up because I knew. So that sermon mentions this, and I'm gonna obviously link them down below so you can also watch them, and it really changed my life. It genuinely changed my life. So these are the 5 things that God said I want to instill in you before the person. So first thing that God wants to establish in you before the person is a place. Now, this is not a house. Could be a house, but a place is basically somewhere where you can actually be planted and where you can grow. A place is somewhere that you had nothing to do with. For me personally, I know it's when my family moved from DRC to South Africa. A place is basically somewhere where you almost planted and you can't really move. You think you're stuck somewhere, but in the places where God reveals the second thing, which is purpose. But before I move to the second thing, the first thing in the place is like this pot plant that I bought. I'm still looking for a name for it. You can't see it. It's not in the shot. But I bought this plant and I placed it in my house, in my room. Right, and in the place where it is, there's soil, and that's where they can get nutrients to grow. But if I was to move this pot plant and put it outside and then uproot it again, put it somewhere else, it will never have time enough to actually get roots deep within and then grow. And so a place is very, very important. And sometimes you fight the place where God has placed you, thinking that it's a mistake. How can anything good come out of Bloemfontein? Look at me, I'm in bloom and I'm good and I'm flourishing because this is the place where God has intended for me to be. And the place is very important because in the places where your purpose is revealed, right? Why were you born? I know there's a lot of, for me personally, I'm 24 now, so there's a lot of existential questions that I'm asking myself. Why was I born? What is my purpose in life? And I'm so grateful that I found that out before now. And when I moved from Joburg to study here, everybody was like, why go so far? But I realized that I needed to be away from my family, not because I hate them, I love them, but there was such a collective identity that we had, and I needed to know who is divine outside of her mom, outside of her dad, outside of her 6, 7, 8 siblings, you understand? And so when I came here, God revealed my purpose to me, and He said, this is why you were born. I want you to be a healer. I want you to, every single person that you meet, I want them to be better because you've touched them. Be it emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically. I just want people's lives to be better because you've encountered them. Because in encountering them, they encounter me as well. And so that's what I knew my purpose was, right? And so I decided, okay, and there's many things you could be born for, but there's a main one, and then your profession and what you're studying and all of that leads to that. I just chose psychology because that's where my interest was. But I could still be somebody that heals people if I was a doctor, or if I was an accountant, or if I was a musician, or if I was an artist. Whatever it is, just use that to heal people, right? And so that's my purpose, and I know that. And that's before the person. Because if you don't know that, you will always look for purpose in other people and in other things, right? And the third thing that God wants to give you before the person is provision. And the truth is, we all know that scripture, right, of Adam and Eve. And, we read down and you see where where the Bible says that it's not good for men to be alone. Even if you're not a Christian, you know that scripture. Everybody knows it. And we use it as a point of reference for relationships, right? But the truth is, God established all of these 5 things before Eve was created. Like before we knew there would be an Eve, there was purpose and a place and provision, right? And so provision is something that God will give freely. I knew that I was meant to study in this university because God made provision. If I was not meant to be here, there wouldn't be funding. Y'all know I'm an international student and we don't get bursaries. Guess who got bursaries without applying? I literally will get an email, dear Miss Pitalo, shout out. Here's some money, keep doing what you're doing. You're a top achiever in your faculty, here's money, keep on studying. Obviously, that's not how they wrote the email, it was very professional. But the truth is, that's how God provided for me because He wanted me here. And sometimes if you have to go out of your way and break, I'm not saying you mustn't work hard. I got recognized academically because I worked hard, but the provision was something that came almost easily and seamlessly because this was what God wanted. And sometimes even in relationships, you keep trying to provide help, provide prayers and praying for this thing to keep working when God is like, if it was my will, it would work out easier, right? And then you have the 4th thing, which is identity. The Bible says, let us make man in our image. Adam didn't look for his purpose, his identity, or who he was or his self-worth in his studies. And that was me. I was like, well, I can't be cute like this person, or I can't be funny like this person, but guess what? I'm smart. And so I became a top achiever. I was a perfectionist, and I kept achieving, and that's where I got my sense of self and my sense of worth. And when I couldn't do that anymore, I was like, I kind of didn't know who I was outside of my studies. And it's very, very important that your self-worth and your identity is based on who created you. Even your parents can't tell you, can't give you identity, right? If you can't play sports anymore, what is your identity? If you have a career-ending injury, not related to relationships, but if you can't play sports anymore, who are you outside of what you can do and what people call you and who you think you could be? Adam knew who he was because every time he woke up, I wasn't there, I'm assuming, I read my Bible. I'm just assuming. Every day when he woke up, he knew I'm made in the image of God and He's my provider. And because of that, I don't think it was a magical thing that lions and bears weren't attacking Adam in the gardens, because he knew who he was. He knew he was the Son of God, and so because God had authority, he had authority. Because God had worth, he had worth. Because God could tame animals, Adam could tame animals. And I think sometimes we lose that in the process, and it's not your fault. You understand? You grow up and people don't treat you the right way, or something happens to you, but it's time to regain that, right? Because if you don't know who you are, you wouldn't know where to go. Without your student card, you can't access campus. Without your identity, how do you access the many opportunities and stuff like that are in your way? You wouldn't know, right? And the last thing that God wants to establish in you before the person is parameters. Adam knew that he wasn't supposed to eat from the tree of life, of knowledge of good and bad, because those were set before. If you haven't set parameters before a relationship, before the person, every single person that you date or you are in situationships with will come and determine what's right or wrong. I grew up in a Christian home. I went to a Christian school in high school, and I went to a Christian church. Like, I thought I knew these parameters. And I remember in high school, we decided, our principal like spoke to us about sex and stuff like that, and then we were supposed to sign this contract to say we're gonna wait until marriage to have sex. And I signed that. I made that decision then already, so my parameters were set. Obviously, when I came to university, things got lit, and I was like, but because I had decided, because my parameters were set before time, a guy wasn't gonna come and try and sway me and change my mind. Yes, there's been times where I'm like, this guy is really, really hot. I've been attracted to people, and I've been tempted more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times, 4, 5. Count it, I've been tempted. But I had set my parameters, and they were set before the person. So when the person comes, I don't compromise. You understand? I remember there was this girl I used to have classes with that once asked me, Divine, so if you meet the right guy, if he treats you right, treats your mama right, treats your daddy right, supports the same soccer team, goes to church with you, buys you flowers, likes your dogs, are you gonna have sex with him? And I laugh because I'm like, no, you can love the Pope. You can do whatever you want. My decision is not based on you. It's based on my relationship with God. And I decided before you showed up. And I'm not going to change my mind because I understand. And it's important to set boundaries and actually have security around your boundaries, right? Let's say if you're driving to Lesotho, you don't get to the borders and they're just borders and both countries just expect people not to cross over. No, there's police, right, at the borders, right? Because it's important to have boundaries so you know not to cross, and then to have levels to that, to say, okay, I have security and a boundary. If I say I'm trying to stay pure until marriage, I can't now, my boundary will be, I can't be in a relationship first of all with somebody that doesn't think the same way. It's not my job to convince them. I decided for myself, right? And also now, because I understand that that's my goal, if I have a boyfriend, I'm not going to let him sleep over. Because it doesn't matter if nothing happens for the first 100 times. There's always a day. And we all understand that. And so because that's my goal, that's my boundary. But then what steps am I taking to protect that boundary and make these other little things that happen? And so that's what helps me. So the boundaries need to be there. Otherwise you wouldn't know. You wouldn't really know how to navigate those things, right? So something very important to remember as well with boundaries is that if you had to step out of a certain boundary to get into a relationship or to get a person's attention, best believe you're going to have to keep stepping out of to keep them. If you send nudes before to get his attention, best believe you're going to have to, because that's what grabbed their attention. If you sleep with somebody or whatever, you're going to have to keep doing that because that's what feeds that. So the truth is, whatever started something will carry it on and carry it over. So it's very important to understand that. And now, after all of these things have been established in you, the truth is that relationships are from God. They're not a bad thing. I can't wait to get into a relationship. I'm looking forward to that in a healthy way, but I also understand that my singleness is not a period that I need to fast away. Like, God, I'm going to fast for 30 days or whatever, like Daniel, just eat my green beans until you give me a man. You understand? Your period of singleness is not a time to wish away or to pray away. No. Nobody in their right mind, right, when you're married, nobody says, oh, I can't wait for when I'm 80 and I can't run anymore and that's the next phase of my life, right? So why do we do that with singleness? There's a purpose to your singleness. It's not just for you to wait and just be like, yo, I can't wait to get out of this. Because the truth is, if one day, I don't know, after having dinner with my husband, we're doing the dishes, and I look at him and I'm like, babe, what were you doing, before you met me? And he says, my love, I was just waiting for you. Waiting for what? So your whole life's purpose was waiting for me to show up. Dude, like, there were so many things that you could have done without me. Why is it that my presence brings significance? If there was nothing before you, that means when I walk into nothing. You should be busy with something, and I'm not saying you must be out here posting things or whatever and being like, oh, busy building this, busy building that. There's purpose and drive to you. Like ambition and drive. One of the main reasons why I broke up with my ex is because I was like, dude, you're too comfortable. You think this is all there is to life. Like, you don't have a vision, and now I must join you and go nowhere. You're going nowhere. You're comfortable with that, and I must be comfortable with that. No, you need to have your own purpose and your vision. You can't wish away these things and just hope. The thing is, sometimes we use relationship as an escape. Because you wake up, you don't really shower until 12 o'clock, you eat, and then maybe you go to class, maybe you study, or whatever. Like you were born for a purpose. I promise you, it's not a mistake that you are here. And you need to get busy with that, because by the time somebody shows up, I know damn well, nobody that knows me can say Divine, during her university years, she was idle, she did nothing. There's no way. I was always busy with something, because I understood I was born for a reason, and it should be the same for you in your relationship. Because by the time I get into a relationship, and it's a committed relationship where I get married, I want my husband to walk into something. I don't want him to walk into emptiness, and vice versa. You understand? So it's very, very important that you maximize. There's things that you can do now that you can't do when you're married. And it's not restrictive, it's just your priorities change. You understand? The same thing when people get married and then within a few months they get pregnant, they have kids. I'm not judging. But sometimes by the time the kids are 18 and they leave the house, people usually divorce after that. Why? Because your purpose was the children. You never had a relationship within marriage. So for each stage of your life, there's a purpose, and you should be fulfilling that to the fullest, because you never know how much freedom again you're gonna have after that. It's not about restricting, it's just I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Now, I like to think about my life and I mirror to David's life, because I try and learn from other people's mistakes. I try and learn from other people's story to say, okay, this is what they did right, this is what they did wrong. But I think about Divine, and right now people could say, wow, Divine, how is it that you're 24 and you're a virgin? How is it that you're so busy with different things or whatever? And the truth is, there are 3 things that actually helped me get to this place, and I want to share that with you guys. And the first thing is the grace of God. I am not special. I don't drink special tea.
Except for this tea, another tea break.
There's no, it's because I'm a bit sick, guys. There's no special formula. I just decided, when I met God in high school, I decided, you know what, I've seen your face and it is true. And I just decided to follow him. And so everything, it makes it not easy, but there's just certain things. The first thing is the grace of God. I understood, wow, that if the grace of God is capable of saving me from hell, of taking me out of bondage, of breaking addictions to porn or whatever in my life, the same grace can sustain me. It's not just good enough to take me out of hell. It's the same grace that sustains me for my life. And so I make use of it. The second thing that I understood is just love. And the truth is, if you truly love somebody, you don't keep doing things that hurt them. If I truly say that I love my mom and she hates garlic bread, I'm not going to keep eating that and bringing that to her. It doesn't make sense, right? So I realized that if I love God, I have to learn how to obey him and do things that please him. And it's not like it's this magical thing, but the Bible says that he will give us new hearts that will know how to love him. And all you have to do is to ask. And I kind of made God human. Not that he stopped being God and stopped being all powerful, but the truth is, I realized that when we think about him as the man up in the sky, we don't really consider his feelings. We don't see that if you're a human being and you're made in his image, best believe that if you hurt, he hurts as well. Right? And the truth is, you have to be honest with God and say, God, I'm struggling with this. It's not easy for me. I'm really struggling with this. Teach me how to love you. Because I don't always love him the right way. I don't always know. And it's hard to be in a relationship with somebody that's perfect and you're not. And so it's like, okay, how do I get to that place? And he's faithful and he's taught me how. So I just stopped doing things that I knew would hurt him. And there was no magic formula. I remember I struggled with porn for a long time. We all know at some point in your life, I don't know, some dirty cousin, whatever, you stumble upon that. And for me, it became an addiction for the longest time, because I was trying to sedate some of the bad things that happened to me. So I would either eat food or watch porn and masturbate for the longest time. And the older I grew, it was never an addiction where it took over my whole life. But I'll be fine, and then 6 months later, pop! And then it's like, okay, I ran again for God, and then 3 months later, and it took a toll on me, and I had to be honest with God and say, God, clearly this hurts you, because I can never be honest with you after this happens. It takes me a while again to start praying again. I will still go to church, I will still serve, I will still lead people, but that was my dirty secret, that, here God, I'm struggling with this, and it's so hard, and all of that. And the only way that broke over me wasn't because somebody laid hands on me and prayed for me. It wasn't because I drank a certain portion or there was a special holy water or whatever. I just started loving God more. I asked him to teach me how to love me, and I said, I don't want to keep doing something that hurts you. So how are you going to help me? Because you pray and you say, God, I want this to stop because it makes me feel bad, or how people look at me. But your prayer changes when you actually say, no, I don't want this off of me because of how I feel, but because it hurts the heart of the person that I love, which is you, God, and I don't want to keep doing that. And I've been free from that simply because I decided to love God. And the third thing that also helped me is that I have a community around me, right? You can't do this by yourself, right? If you were a crack addict, I hope you're not, but if you were, let's say, addicted to crack cocaine, and then you go to rehab and then you get clean, they don't send you back into the same community where you picked up those habits, right? So if you're trying to live purely for God and you're trying to stay sexually pure or do relationships the right way, you can't hang out with the same people that keep doing the same things, you understand? Because you pick up those habits. It's just how it is. And so I have a community around me. And it's not like I don't hang out with people who aren't believers or whatever, but the majority of my time can't be with people who have behaviors that I'm trying to break in my life. It doesn't make sense, right? So I decided I have a community around me that help me out. I have girlfriends. We have this WhatsApp group, and sometimes I wake up in the morning like, guys, I'm feeling some type of way today. And they help me out, and I have a leader at church that I'm accountable to, and I know he has the best interest for me. Does it get awkward to tell him every detail of certain things? Yes, but I understand, and I never get comfortable with God, and I never get to a point where I'm like, no, I got this. Because when you get to a point where you're like, no, I don't need people divine, but you're a leader most. You can pray in tongues. You make the Holy Spirit show up in rooms when you pray. You know the Bible. You study the Bible. You establish. When you get to that place where you don't need people is when you're the most vulnerable. And I understand greater men than me and greater women than me have fallen before. So I can never get to a place of comfortability to say, no, I got this. I'm always depending on the grace of God, and I understand that it is that sustains me. So community is very, very important, because if we were meant to be isolated, doing our own things by ourselves, literally there's so many planets in the Milky Way galaxy. God will put us each in our own planet and say, figure it out. He's got tomatoes, you've got cucumber, make it happen as you want to. But it's not like that. There's community, and the church community, especially for me, has helped me with that. So it's very, very important. And to be honest with God, I'll be telling God, I know when I'm going to have an amazing sex life, Jesus, I can't wait for that. But right now, so I had to be like, God is hard. Like, I'm really hard. Like, I need you, God, to blow off these candles. It's like the room and my house, the mood was always set. Really had to be honest with God and be like, God is hot. I'm always on fire. Sometimes it's like I'm fine, and all of a sudden it's like all these feelings come, because you're a human being. You have the flesh that's there, and so you feel these things. But I have to be honest with God and be like, God, it seems like there's always like candles and the mood set in my life. God, I'm gonna need you to do this, like shut it down, take it all away, because if you don't help me, I won't be able to do that. And if you're honest with God, if you're truly honest with him, he is not a bad father. If you go to your mom or to your dad and be like, Mom, I'm struggling with this, help me, do they kick you out of their room? I hope they don't. And if they do, I promise you that's not how God is. Just because you have a bad experience with your human people around you and human parents doesn't mean that's the way he is. He can't ask us to live a life of purity and not teach us or help us, right? If I were to send my sister to the mall to buy something for me, and I'm human and I'm flawed, I wouldn't send her without instructions, right? And I will help her. How much more about God? He doesn't ask us to do these things without helping us, right? So be very honest with him. That is something that also helped me. To be honest with God and say, I'm really attracted to this guy. I remember last year sometime, we won't say when or where, you will never know. But I met this guy he was so hot. It was a problem. I was like, so you just wake up every day, you like this. And we spoke for maybe a span of 2 weeks, and I was so tempted. I was like, Divine, like, why must you follow all the rules to the T? Like, there's so many people that, step out of the line. Why can't you? It's even not that deep. And I realized, okay, cool. I'm not gonna make decisions, first of all, out of feelings. Because I've been to Italy, and there's men that are hotter there. I can relax. You understand? I haven't been to Spain, but we get excited and we get impressionable over people that are here. Dude, there's more to life. You're not an animal. You can control yourself. I promise you. Go shower, go for a run, work on your business, go to classes. I promise you, if you were in class and on campus, like, it would take care of like 50% of the issue that you're facing. So there's so many things that you can get busy with just to keep you busy. And I know that doesn't, it's maybe solving a symptomatic issue, and it's like, no, but even though I'm busy, I still think about it. And we can even have other videos and conversations on like how to actually get to the source of it. But this is one of the things that I did that really helped me as well with that situation. So I also think the other question I get a lot, and we're gonna end here, is that doesn't it get lonely? And the truth is, you are a human being. It's good to feel loved. It's good to get chocolate on Valentine is coming. You know, that song really got stuck in my head this year. I was like, damn, out of all the years in my life. But you are human, you understand? So you will feel sometimes like, yo, but my friends and all of that. But I think it's important to trust God. If He's capable to take care of you, to wake you up in the morning, to provide for you, trust Him with this area of your life as well. I'm sure many of you guys, whether you see it or not, whether you've recognized it or not, He's been consistent. Even when you aren't consistent. And if you can be consistent with that one area, with so many areas of your life, give Him this one as well. And don't shut down the Holy Spirit as well. The sad thing is that when you block Him off in one area and like, God bless my finances, bless my studies, and when He's like, okay, let me touch your relationship as well and teach you how to do it right, we're like, nope, we ghost God. Or we give Him blue ticks and you don't really, you know, you're not trying to hear what He's saying. And the truth is, when you block Him in one aspect, you block Him everywhere, because He's not selective like that. If you put up walls, He can't get in, even in those areas that you're trusting Him with. You understand? So trust Him. And how do you learn to trust Him? But it's by experiences. The reason why I knew that God had better for me in the next relationship is because He's been providing for me in other areas. So I just look and I'm like, but God has been so good with my family. God has been so good with my studies. God has been so good with my friendship. God has healed me of depression. I'm not trying to kill myself every 2-3 weeks anymore. If He can do that, then how much more in my relationship, right? But you can only get that once you spend time with Him and you know His character. Because you know Him to be a provider in one way, He can provide in the other way as well. Right, so that's very, very important. Does it get lonely? Yes, but get busy. That's why you have friendships. We spoke about them last week, right? Like, I make this joke all the time, but I don't always feel like I don't have anybody to hear me, because I have friends that listen to me. I don't feel like I'm not valued, because my friends value me, my family value me, my structure values me, my community at church values me. So it never feels like I'm never ever seen or wanted or desired or appreciated, because I have love in my life in so many ways. Yes, romantically it will happen, but it doesn't feel like I'm lacking in love, because I have love. I've just taken the time to recognize it and appreciate it. It's very, very important. And I want to leave you guys with this. If you are not the right person, it's the wrong time. Even the right person for you will be toxic. So you need to take time to also become the right person. And you don't become that outside of your creator. You don't take a Samsung to Apple and ask them to fix that. You can't take yourself to other people in relationships and they tell you only God can fix. And I know that I've been in relationships. I've been in situationships 15, 11, we don't know what the number is. The researchers are still out there trying to find out. But the truth is, you will always find yourself lacking until you go back to the source. And the earlier you get that in your life, the better. I wish I knew this when I was 16. I would have saved so much time, so much airtime, so many tears. Because you're always going to be looking. And nothing is ever going to be good enough. No person is ever going to be enough until you connect to your creator. And I want to leave you guys with this one last thing, is that the right person, and I promise you, the right person won't ask you to stand up from the table where God has set you down and said He wants to feed you, to fill you up. The right person will also be sitting